Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Tech Talk Q&A. This is issue number 163. Bitcoin Tech Talk newsletter is something that I put out every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, and it has a bunch of technical news around Bitcoin over the past week. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on, so let's get straight to it. Here is the newsletter, Bitcoin Tech Talk, issue number 163, November 18th, 2019. And you can subscribe to this newsletter looking at the show notes. There are links to subscribe. Anyway, lots of stuff going on, but first, we have the Little Bitcoin book that's available on Amazon for $11.39, and we have the Spanish version, El Pequeño Libro de Bitcoin, ¿Por qué Bitcoin importa para tu libertad, tus finanzas y tu futuro? So that's the Spanish version. We would like to get some reviews on this because it's, right now it doesn't have any reviews. Anyway, it's been translated to Spanish. I think we just finished Portuguese. We'll get that out pretty soon as well. Just in time for La BitConf, which is happening in December. So please take a look at it and promote it to your friends that are pre-coiners that don't know about Bitcoin yet. And of course, if you are a programmer, there's my book, Programming Bitcoin, and that is going to be about how to learning about Bitcoin and programming it from scratch. And there's also my seminar, Programming Blockchain, which is happening in Las Vegas, February 20 to 21st, just in time for Tone's conference, Unconfiscatable, which happens in Vegas every year now. All right, so a lot of stuff going on this week. Let's take a look at some of what's going on. All right, so Stratum V2. So this is from Jan Sapek and Pavel Moravec. And they collaborated with Matt Corallo to come up with a different mining protocol. And if you are familiar with what's going on, you know that Better Hash was announced. I did a show with Matt Corallo, I think about a year and a half back, about Better Hash, which was a way to decentralize mining to some degree. It's basically making it so that mining pools wouldn't get to choose the block. It would be up to the individual miners that are contributing hash power to the pool. Now, that was sort of in conflict a little bit with what Jan and Pavel wanted to do with the next version of the Stratum protocol. So they got together and basically came up with Stratum V2, which takes all of the best parts of Stratum, all of the best parts of Better Hash, and defines it in this really nice protocol. The big points here are job negotiation protocol. So there's basically there's a negotiation going on about the actual block template that you're going to use and whether or not a pool will pay for it and so on. There's also a template distribution protocol. So job negotiation means that the person contributing the mining hash power gets to decide what the block looks like to some degree. And that there's a negotiation there. If something needs to go in there and it's not, then there needs to be some communication, and that's what the negotiation protocol is all about. It's also a template distribution protocol, and this is a protocol for the get block template. This helps miners know what to mine with, and a job distribution protocol. There's it doesn't consume that much bandwidth. It's very, very small. I mean, Stratum's pretty small as it is. The CPU load is less, and the latency is almost non-existent because there's you know what the next one will look like very quickly, and that helps it helps the network not have empty blocks, which is great. Binary versus non-binary. I guess it's you can make it human readable in V1, but that's no longer the case with V2. Nobody really reads the stuff unless you're debugging it. man in the middle, attack prevention, empty block mining elimination, job selection, header only mining. So that's a very lightweight version. Uh, Multiplexing and implicit work subscription. I mean, it's zero time backend switching. This one's interesting. So if you want to switch pools, it'll take almost like no time at all, because the protocol lets you just move over and switch things without too much of an overhead. Of course, your rewards might be different depending on like what the pool reward algorithm is and so on. But really cool stuff. I really hope this gets in very soon. And I mean, given that Pavel and Jan are part of Slush Pool, I suspect that that will be the first pool to utilize Stratum V2. And given that it's good for everybody, I imagine that more people will adopt it and more pools will adopt it in the coming years and months. All right, Bitcoin minimalism. This is an article by Dan Held. I don't know why it does this. Something about Medium that causes that. All right, so the idea of this article is that it's really Bitcoin is a minimalist mindset. And it's funny because, of course, Bitcoin maximalist is sort of like the slur that Ethereum people use and whatever. But the idea is that you really don't need very much, and you want to minimize the set of features, minimize complexity, increase security, and so on. So that's the idea. And this article sort of lays that out in a quick read. Encourage you guys to read it. Take a look at it. All right. This one is from Rhythm Bitcoin. He's been publishing a lot of articles. Really, like this guy knows what he's talking about. But this is talking about the value of Bitcoin versus the actual price of Bitcoin and how they're kind of different. And this is taking a cue from the Plan B's stock to flow ratio and so on. But there's a value to Bitcoin that not a lot of people really understand yet. And until then, the price is not going to catch up to the actual value. And that's basically what he's arguing. It goes a lot deeper than that, obviously. But he's a little more political than I am, so he'll get into a lot of the reasoning behind why the value of Bitcoin's much greater than the current price. Coinbase had an interesting blog article, how Coinbase reviews proof of work security. And essentially, they reduced the number of confirmations needed from 6. And the idea behind this was, okay, there's a way in which something can get hacked. And given the hash rate of Bitcoin and so on, they felt that it was okay to reduce from 6 to 3. And there's some history here with the 51% attack on Bitcoin Gold, Monero's algorithmic tweaks, and so on, which it should tell you something that Coinbase requires something like 35 confirmations for Bitcoin Cash. That's how insecure they think the proof of work is there. So so that's something to think about and read and learn about. But it's a nice introduction to how to think about proof of work from a security standpoint. All right, Caravan announcement. So this is a multi-sig tool developed by Unchained Capital. Essentially, it lets you do multi-sig with this open source tool. It's a coordinator for gathering signatures and so on. I believe it uses PSBT, partially signed Bitcoin transactions. But great of them to release it open source and so on. All right, let's see. What other stories are there? Lightning. All right, Lightning node security. So this is from DevRandom. DevRandom's been a Bitcoin core dev for a long time. But basically, it's about Lightning nodes, running one, and how to secure one, because there are sort of certain attack vectors that you have to think about. And this lays out a lot of what you need to think about as a Lightning node runner. In a sense, you have to be careful because you don't want to be part of like some sort of Lightning botnet or something like that, which is certainly possible. All right, Lightning Channel. So this is a little cool tool that I saw that looked very interesting to me, and essentially it's a way to um, look at the different channels that are on the network and who opened them and what. And these are only the discoverable ones, obviously, but it'll give you a sense of what the capacity is and so on. It's pretty cool. The top capacity that used to be there. The highest Lightning channel available right now is 1.8 Bitcoins, which is like $15,000 or something like that. So really interesting, interesting tool if you're working on Lightning. All right, let's take a look at some of this stuff. So I wrote an article on altcoin valuation. I apologize that it's a 13-minute read. But basically, I argue about altcoins and where they get their value. We know Bitcoin we know that there's a lot of reasons for Bitcoin's value, namely store of value and the ability to have this stock to flow ratio that is very credible, its 10-year history and so on. But I wanted to sort of dig into what's giving some of these other altcoins value. The main thing that I argue is that technical reality does not mean anything. It's actually marketing prowess that determines price, and not technical features, which is what everyone argues, but it isn't the case at all. It's all about marketing, and I give some pretty interesting examples. Encourage you to read that if you have not. Crypto is modern alchemy. This is from Meltem Demore, and she's been publishing more recently. But basically, she compares alchemy to cryptocurrency, and it's an interesting way to view altcoins as well. So encourage you to take a look at that. They're all trying to turn into Bitcoin, basically. History of crypto exchanges. This is published by Nomics, and if you don't know all of the sordid history of crypto exchanges and how they went bust and stuff like that, this is a great way to read through and understand what's going on, because there was just so much fraud and so much badness. And it's important to know this stuff and remember why it's important to keep your own keys, right? Like possess your own Bitcoin and be your own bank. Really good article. Encourage you to read it. All right. That's about it. I mean, I did do this interview with Thomas on the World Crypto Network, and basically it's like a 50-minute interview where we just kind of talk about how I got into Bitcoin and so on. And yeah, there's that's about it for the newsletter. All right, let's take a look at the questions, and then we'll get into my Twitter feed. All right, hi Jimmy. I was going to ask you what you think about Richard Hart's Hex crypto coin. Well, he's been promising something for over a year now. The fact that he hasn't launched it tells you either he's waiting for a bull market, or he just doesn't have the technical competence to pull it off. Either way, it's a scam, I think. So I wouldn't take a look at it at all. If it's free money, then yeah, go for it and go get some, but that's about it. Do you know the current average cost of mining a Bitcoin? This info is so difficult to get. Thank you. Well, I mean, there's mining cost calculators all over the internet. In fact, we can here we'll search mining cost calculator. So here it is, Bitcoin mining profitability calculator. It depends on the machine you have, how much it consumes, what your cost per kilowatt hour is, and what the pool fee is, and so on, and how much you can expect to make a day. The cost is going to be purely the capital cost of the mining equipment and the electricity that it consumes, given how much power it consumes. So that's how you would figure that out. Can you recommend a good source for learning coding for kids? I mean, there's a lot of different sources out there. I wouldn't be the expert. My kids learn using Scratch and so on. Um, so yeah, I would suspect that that would be the uh, you know that would be the way to go, is go look for resources either on Amazon or on the web, and look for something that has good reviews, because I mean, honestly, it's been a long time since I learned coding, and I don't remember exactly, what worked and so on. So, that hard to, think like a second grader or however your child is. Almost done with programming Bitcoin. Just wanted to say, great book. Also, when can we expect another programming related Bitcoin book? Um, well, so the plan is to create another course like programming blockchain that you're seeing here, except calling it programming wallet, and it would have a lot of the stuff that I didn't cover in the first book: HD wallets, BIP39, mnemonic backups, PSBT, neutrino, storing a seed, and just sort of safe practices around that. There's a lot to cover, and I've been working on that course. I'm about 70% through it. I still need to finish out that last 30% before I could test it and give that seminar a few times before I would start thinking about writing a book. So I'm guessing like a year, 2 years, something like that. Hard to say though. Okay, how often do you do these talks, Jimmy? Right around once a week. I try to do it once a week. Sometimes I'm away and so on, so can't do it every week. But I do these, about once a week, depending. And I do it in the early afternoon and Central Time. It's somewhere between noon and 3 p.m. Central Time, generally. Hey, Jamie, I've never heard anyone discuss the possibility that Bitcoin is infinitely divisible. Couldn't, through a soft fork, represent Bitcoin with more zeros than eight? Right now, it's, I believe, if I read this correctly, and I think I just saw a tweet from Alex Bosworth. So here's the 0.00001 BTC is no longer the lower limit for an LND payment. For situations where 1/100th of 1 penny is too damn much, you can now charge as 1/100,000th of 1 cent. So obviously you still have to settle on the network in Satoshis, but the idea with Lightning is that you can send sub pieces of that. And this is why it's really interesting, layer 2 tech and so on. So yeah, I mean, if Bitcoin goes to $10 million or something, this stuff is going to start mattering. All right. All right. So that was it for the questions. Let's go over some tweets this week. All right. The most productive people with the most wealth spend the most time investing or preserving the wealth they have. They essentially work a second job to store whatever value they can. If only there was a way to store value in a fair way that gets the same returns everywhere. Well, that's just the reality, is that there's no real good store of value. So everyone spends a lot of time researching real estate or stocks or something, and they don't necessarily trust other people's research. So what they end up doing is doing the research themselves. This is an enormous waste of time and energy from perhaps the most productive people in society. And really, if there was only a fair store of value, right? Like, it would be so much easier. And that's basically Bitcoin. That's what I was implying, though. I don't know how many people got that. Privacy is a form of information. Once released, it's near impossible to contain. Sadly, fiat makes information collection necessary as they try to prevent fraud. Bitcoin fixes this somewhat. This is why every credit card, every time you do anything with a credit card, you have to give your name, address, and phone, sometimes even phone number or something like that. This is because they want to prevent fraud. And it's kind of the sad reality, but that's how they do it, through information collection. And that means your privacy gets compromised. My My contention is that Bitcoin does fix this somewhat. Although, if you're paying for physical goods or whatever, you're still going to have to enter an address, and that could be used to track you down and so on. All right, little funny thing that I encountered at the grocery store when I was wearing that particular shirt. What kind of yoga is that, sir? There's a nice old lady. She said that her daughter is like in tech, but she thought this was like some sort of yoga. Kind of funny. Let's see. Inflation causes more wealth inequality than luck or skill. This is true. Inflation is a wealth redistribution scheme. Essentially, it's going from everybody to the people that inflation is serving, which is often big companies and very rich people. All right, you know how you're scrolling down your Twitter feed right now because you're bored? Stop. Boredom is a part of life. Experience it, savor it, enjoy it. Real joy cannot happen when you're constantly in a state of mild stimulation. I was trying to start kind of a little bit of a new series, Lessons from the Art of Holding. I think it should be just Lessons from Hodling or something like that. But that's the idea, is that it's okay to be bored. It lets you sort of process things a little differently. And this is part of the idea of holding, is that you have to be okay with boredom. And holding is lots of boredom, right? Like you're not really doing anything. And the temptation is to constantly trade and so on. So that was the point. I guess it was pretty popular, 438 likes. Your attention is valuable because it's scarce. Companies pay a lot of money to get it. Are you spending your attention on something worthwhile? Lessons from Holding. So yeah, your attention is valuable and it is scarce. And a lot of companies pay a lot of money to get it. Thing is, like, if you give them that attention, then you're going to be influenced by it. And part of holding is not getting influenced by the people that you don't that are trying to get you to sell, essentially. And that's part of the lesson of holding. All right, and I tweeted about stratum v2. Here's another one. The market can stay irrational longer than you can hold out on learning to code. It's a little play on Keynes's quote, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. A lot of people holding out on learning how to code. I thought I'd give them a little bit of a kick. And a lot of people that are holding are learning how to code in the meantime. So good stuff. All right, I just published on Altcoin Valuation. I already talked about that. What's an argument that you've given that's worked with pre-coiners? Some interesting responses. Dude, you bought pets.com stock using the stock flow. You can walk through any border with infinite money. One thing they can't make more of is Bitcoin. How long did it take you to figure out that the internet was here to stay? Some really good stuff. Just like 60 responses, so I'm not going to read them all, but those seem to be the popular ones. I republished like a quote from the Blockchain Not Bitcoin article that or Why Blockchain is Not the Answer article that I wrote back in May. Blockchain became a blank canvas onto which any problem could be painted as being solvable. Literally hundreds of startups and industry consortiums, many using ICOs, promise to solve the biggest inefficiencies in every industry using blockchain. And that's a quote from the actual article. Just thought, hey, it's been around a while, but I'm not sure everyone's read it. A central banker's wet dream, having every transaction logged and subject to approval, ability to seize or destroy funds of those it doesn't like, being able to expand or contract money supply, punishing people that hoard. This is the future without Bitcoin. And of course, my friend Ken Liu says, one could argue that's the present right now. Touche. Indeed, that is the case. But that's going to be more of the future if they adopt some sort of like cryptographically signed, ledger that everyone has to use. I mean, a lot of this tech that we're using can be used for good, like in Bitcoin, but it can also be used for evil, like with a central bank. And that's the reality. Let's see, the World Crypto Net interview. Economists are modern day false prophets. And this is, of course, dumping on Francis Coppola, who's an idiot. So yeah, basically she predicted that BCH will eventually drive out BTC. Your Keynesian ideology doesn't work in the real world, Francis. And that's why you don't know anything. All right. Other stuff. Oh, this was interesting. BCH hard forks are still happening, and of course, there's chaos as a result. There's a split 6 blocks deep. So, BCH hard forked on November 15th, and there was a 6 block chain that kept going from the old one. And this is the real problem with a lot of hard forks, is that you don't have a guarantee that everyone's going to follow it. Now, this one was probably accidental. There was probably somebody that didn't upgrade in time or something like that, and they lost a lot of money. 6 blocks, that's like what, like 75 Bitcoin, something like BCH, not Bitcoin, 75 BCH, which is, not a small amount of money. But this is kind of what happens when you don't pay attention to the exact hard fork rules on a centralized coin like BCH. Is you have to do what they say, right? Like that's why I call it centralized. You have to do what they say, or you lose your coins. That's it. And these guys lost their coins. All right. 2 years ago, I wanted 2x to happen so the corporations that backed it would be crushed by the cold hard slap of reality. Alas, most of us didn't get to make money from selling B2X coins, and the backers never got the financial ruin they deserved. Yeah, still a little bitter about what happened with 2x. So I wanted it to go through because I thought it would make Bitcoin more anti-fragile. It would give a lot of us the ability to sell the Segwit 2x coins and make some money off of it. And a lot of those people that backed it are still kind of like stubborn about it. Obviously, Bobby Lee tweeted about how he was wrong and stuff. Good for him. But there are still other people that haven't apologized. And really, though, they're probably not ever going to apologize. And that's okay. The thing is, I'd like to punish them for their treachery. And this would have been it if 2x actually went through. Wrote an article a long time back about during the 2x hard fork, like how it wouldn't have gone through. Like they would have been stuck on a block because of an off by one error that Jeff Garzik made. So, that would have been really interesting. I wish that came to pass. Sadly, it didn't. All right. Once enough people use Bitcoin as a store of value, here's what will happen. You'll be able to deposit Bitcoins to an account that can liquidate automatically to USD. You'll be able to pay off your credit card, rent, etc. with this account. This will cause more people to use Bitcoin as a store of value. Most popular tweet this week. And I think this is because this is the future that I'm envisioning. People are going to use it as a store of value. But a lot of people use it right now. But the liquidity between Bitcoin and US dollars requires like multiple accounts, lots of transfers, and so on. It's just not very convenient. But once it is, I think a lot more people are going to be using it. So say you have a service that allows you to have liquidity back and forth with your checking account like instantaneously. So it's something like a check account, so you can do all the ACH payments and so on, at least in the United States, but keep your money in Bitcoin. I think Bull Bitcoin does something similar in Canada, but once you have that, then why keep it in dollars? I mean, you'll have times of you'll have some bear markets, but you also have bull markets, and you can figure out the allocation that you want between the two instead of having to rebalance it and having to go through all of that friction. So I think that will cause more people to use Bitcoin as a store of value, having it as an option. All right, interesting survey. Most people seem to be using hardware wallets, which is interesting, but that's their thing. Vices are security holes, and this is true. If gambling is your vice, then that's a security hole. People are going to use it against you, right? Like if lust is your vice, then that's a security hole. Like you have life security holes just as much as you do like IT security holes, and you have to think about that going forward, especially if Bitcoin does really, really well. VCs like this guy thinks he's a kingmaker. Sorry to burst your bubble, but you don't get to tell the market what it wants. Bitcoin doesn't owe you anything, and Bitcoin doesn't care what you think. Remember 2x. And this was in response to Yaniv Tal's tweet. I really dislike the censorship resistance narrative. Show me a focus group that shows anybody cares about this. A VC would not fund a company that TAM yet. We're building a whole industry around it. Wrong narrative next. And it's like, dude, you don't get to tell the market what it's supposed to like. I think a lot of VCs have this mentality. He told me he's not a VC, whatever, but in a sense, it's it's kind of the wrong mentality. It already exists. It's already successful. You don't get to tell it how it should change, right? Like that's not how decentralized stuff works. You can't tell something decentralized go change and make yourself so that it's more convenient for me or because I think it's the way it is. That's the path towards centralization, and that's why I put remember 2x in there because in a sense, a lot of those big companies wanted to direct Bitcoin towards what they thought would be more useful. And that's not how Bitcoin works. And that was one of the major turning points of Bitcoin, at least in my mind. All right, let's see. There's a large group of people that will continue to dismiss Bitcoin because their economic views won't let them. It's still early. Yeah, there's a lot of people like Francis Coppola that think, oh, it can't work, so I'm not going to invest in it, despite all evidence to the contrary from the last 10 years. And that's just the reality. And there's a lot of people, I think, especially Keynesians, that don't value Bitcoin's value prop at all. But they're going to be wrong, and they're going to be the ones that suffer the most. And that's why I say it's still early. Until those people get convinced, I don't think it's in any way early. In any way late. You're still going to make a lot of money because those people are going to be the ones losing it. Fiat money is an extension of the state. Its main purpose is to control. Take back your sovereignty. Start with Bitcoin. And this is kind of a response to what's going on in Hong Kong and so on. Money is a way in which the state can control you, right? Like they can shut down your bank account, seize your funds, do all sorts of evil things as a way to take away your own sovereignty. So Bitcoin is a way to take that back. And this is the only way it's going to happen is by us taking it back ourselves instead of asking permission from the government or trying to vote them out or whatever ridiculousness that people in the past wanted to do. That doesn't work, right? Like the people that have power are not going to want to give it up. It only either unfortunately changes either by some sort of violent revolution or in Bitcoin's case, I think there's a chance for a peaceful revolution as a result. Anyway, all right, let's take a look at a few more questions. It looks like we had a bunch more. What are your thoughts on scaling on layer 0 through network improvements like blocks roots? I've taken a look at blocks roots a while ago, and I mean, essentially underneath the assumption is having giant blocks, and you don't need that. I don't see the market demanded, so I think it's kind of stupid. What's the influence of the whales buying and selling whole amounts as ever they want on the long run? Then if they sell, then other people necessarily gain it and they stop being whales. So, that's always going to be there, but it only adds a little, some volatility, and that's about it. Hex snapshot in 2 weeks. So it is real. Yeah, whatever. I mean, maybe it's worth something, maybe it's not, but I wouldn't count on it being worth very much. Can you explain SegWit? I did. I do in my book, certainly. And it's hard to understand without understanding pay to script hash first and like the entire script language and how the whole smart contract language behind Bitcoin works. I would encourage you to read my book if you're really curious. How would a Libra launch affect Bitcoin? I don't think it will. I mean, it's Libra is meant to be some sort of a transactional currency, and I've said this before about Facebook. Basically, their play is to monetize some of these users that aren't giving them much money, right? Like you have people in Africa that have Facebook accounts. The ad views that they use, that's not very much revenue for Facebook, if anything. There aren't that many advertisers in Africa that want to target those types of people. I mean, there might be, but it's certainly not paying very much. So their play here is to monetize a lot of that by charging a little bit of a tax on their Libra token being going back and forth and so on. It's that's their play. They want to do that. So it's more of a medium of exchange, and it's more like a stable coin on the kind of like Tether than anything else. But yeah, I don't think it really affects Bitcoin other than, if there's an exchange that'll take Libra and give you Bitcoin. Well, and you know, like what I was saying before about having some liquidity between and so on, would make it even more convenient. I mean, that's the degree I think we'll see things. All right, so let's go over some of the stuff that's happening. Las Vegas, February 2021. That's programming blockchain. I am also going to be at that conference, Unconfiscatable. This is happening in Las Vegas, 20 to 23. So 2021 is my seminar. I think 22 is this is the conference, and 23 is like the poker tournament, something like that. So it's going to be Carnivory Club and all this other stuff. It's going to be really fun. I am also going to be at, oh gosh, what was the URL of that conference? Techfin.asia. Yeah, there we go. I'm speaking at this conference in Seoul. This is let's put it in English. I am speaking there. This is, when is this? I think it's December 4th and 5th and 6th in Seoul. So, yeah, if you're in that region of the world, I would love to hang out with you. I'm going to have some book signing and so on. The Korean version of my book is available in Korea, so I want to do a book signing and so on. Let's see. La BitConf is the conference after that I'm going to. That's December 12th and 13th, and it's in Montevideo, Uruguay, and it's going to be a Latin American conference. So I'll be there. Oh, I guess Andreas is there. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I'm there. Adam, David, Stacy, Max, Eric, Elena, lot of people coming. So it's gonna be a pretty good group, and we're all gonna have a lot of fun. So, yeah, I keep hearing about how fun this conference is. So that's another one that I'm going to. And just to complete the stuff, it's February 6th and 7th. I'm also going to be at this conference, Advancing Bitcoin Developer Conference. Once again, my books are available on Amazon, the Little Bitcoin book in English, the Little Bitcoin book in Spanish, and Programming Bitcoin in English. I believe there's going to be a Portuguese version of the Little Bitcoin book soon, and of course the Korean version of Programming Bitcoin is already available in Korea. Anyway, that's about it. Let me see if there's any other questions. I think there's one more question. Hello, Jimmy. You said last time a governance blockchain is centralized because of the democracy. If it is hosted in a decentralized way, how does this figure? Can you explain, please? Well, the idea of governance is that they make decisions for everybody, and unless you have unanimity, in which case that's fine. That's if it's decentralized and everyone wants to do something, then it's fairly obvious how everyone can just move on and so on. But without unanimity, there's some people that are going to be unhappy with whatever decision. And you're essentially forcing them to obey your rules. And that's the essence of any sort of governance around almost anything. I mean, it could be like a homeowners association, or it could be like, the U.S. government or something like that. Whatever it is, you're sort of forcing the will of the majority on everybody else, and that's the essence of what a democracy is. And in that way, it's not really decentralized. There is a center that makes decisions, and that's different than what true decentralization like Bitcoin is. So that's how I would explain it. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Hopefully you got something out of it. That's about 40 minutes. Hopefully I can do this again next week. Anyway, enjoyed this. Hope that helps you. This song is done.